What happens to women in midlife a lot of times is this constant feeling of overwhelm. And as we are rebuilding our lives or redesigning the life that we want, in the second chapter, we are coming against a lot of this intense overwhelm and confusion sometimes, and all kinds of things, besides what's happening with our bodies. And today I want to talk about another reason why we have this feeling of overwhelm. And if you looked at my other videos, I covered the order in which we're to redesign our lives, how to rebuild our lives. And so this will be the second step. And in this step, we're really tackling a lot to do with the responsibilities that you're carrying. So we covered earlier on, the first step was mental overload. And today is going to be the things that are draining you. What are the responsibilities that you're carrying that you probably shouldn't be carrying? And that's what we're covering. So if you're new here, my name is Janet, and this is the Second Act Collective. So we are in this series where I'm talking about how to actually rebuild your life properly in a way that is going to be sustainable. And we're taking each step at a time to just examine what that looks like for you. Again, I'm not a guru. This is me just speaking from my own experience, the things that I've, worked through with the women that I've coached before, and the things that I'm also implementing or have implemented in my life and that I'm continuing to implement. So what are the things that make us feel overwhelmed besides the mental overload? A lot of it is the commitments that we don't need in our lives anymore, that don't make any sense. The responsibilities that we've probably had for a long time and never questioned, or nobody questions, we just have them, and you haven't questioned them, the people in your life haven't questioned them. And maybe the things that you've just kept doing. You've kept doing something for a long time that it has become your responsibility, and there's never been really an audit. So this second step is really about auditing your life in terms of what needs to be removed, what needs to stay. And this is difficult. This is difficult because, we've put things on paper. And a lot of times we stop there because that's easy. Writing things, dumping things on paper is easier than taking action, because taking action requires honesty. And honesty is it's not easy. Being honest with ourselves, being honest with the people around us, being honest about what's going on in our lives is not easy. So we tend to have these problems in our lives that are maybe some outdated commitments, maybe some responsibilities that we should not be carrying, emotional responsibility for other people that we should not be carrying, expectations from other people, or even ourselves that have not been updated. And these are things that will drain your energy, they'll drain you emotionally until you just feel dry and you feel overwhelmed and you wonder why. And so we are trying to just manage our lives, to survive through lives a lot of times, instead of actually living and, enjoying our lives. And what we are doing here on this space, on this channel, is trying to help you, trying to help myself, women out there. How do we redesign this life, and how do we do it in the right order? So I'm going to break this down in terms of us getting rid of the emotional drain. We're going to start with the outdated commitments. What are the things that you've committed to? Maybe you did this 2 years ago, 5 years ago. We put ourselves in a lot of commitments sometimes that we probably shouldn't. Maybe you were in one of your child's PTO thing, or whatever thing that you were doing at school for them. Maybe it's a commitment that you made at work. And these are things that might not make any sense. Maybe there are commitments that you've made in your business that don't make sense anymore. Maybe there are commitments in relationships that don't make any sense anymore, in friendships, in the people that are close to you, in family. What are those things? What about even responsibilities, that are done out of obligation, out of guilt. And coming from a culture that I'm from, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, and I had to work through that to say, okay, what actually am I responsible for, and what am I doing out of guilt? So coming from an African background that I'm from, this we really have to work through that, because there's part of that culture. Not that there's anything, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the culture in itself. It's just there are certain things in every culture that needs to be addressed. And this is one of the things I have, just growing up in this culture where a lot of times we did things as children out of guilt and obligation. And yes, there are obligations and responsibilities, but a lot of it is just laden with guilt. So what are those things in your life that are guilt-based responsibilities that you feel bad not doing, but you probably shouldn't be doing? Because in this second chapter, we are not going into things and doing things out of guilt. We want to be free. Okay, what are the unspoken rules? So if you're one who has been handling everything in your relationships, in your maybe even at work, even in your business, what are the unspoken rules that you have signed up for? Maybe involuntarily, maybe you didn't really mean to, and you find yourself that you've taken up this role and it is draining you. What are those things that you have handled that maybe you shouldn't handle, right? You shouldn't handle in this chapter that you're in. So these are the kind of things that we're looking at as we try to figure out what is the thing that is draining us, that is sucking the life out of us. What is that? Right? So the first step would be now to look at the process itself, would be what we want to identify the things that no longer fit us. Right? So you've got that list that we made from the last video, that was, all the stuff that you dumped on that paper. What are the things that you say to yourself, this no longer fits, this no longer feels good, this is no longer who I am? If I was starting my life, and you are in this process of redesigning your life, you're kind of restarting your life, right? What would you choose this time? So you are making the choice of what fits and what doesn't, what commitment fits and what doesn't, what obligations fits and what doesn't, what routines fits and what roles fit. Like, you are now looking at all those things and making that choice and saying to yourself what no longer fits and needs to be removed. And you're not to spend time questioning yourself and feeling bad about this. It's really just being honest. Like, I can no longer do this. I can no longer commit to this, either because you have too much on your plate, you just don't have the energy, you don't have the zeal, whatever. You are looking at the commitments and obligations you have, the routines that have been in your life, the roles that you've played, and saying what no longer fits me in this season that I'm in. And then we're getting rid of those and keeping what we want in this season. The next step would be to then list the things that we're doing out of guilt, right? Are we doing this because it's necessary or because we feel bad about it? Right? Because a lot of times the responsibilities that we have taken on are out of guilt, because you feel bad, not because you have to, not because it's your responsibility, but maybe somewhere along the line, somebody made you feel bad about it. So maybe you're over helping people in your family. It could be financially, it could be emotionally. I'm very much aware of, in relationships, whether it's family, whether it's close, whether it's, whatever kind of relationship, that I don't want to be somebody's emotional dumpster. And I also don't want to be somebody who's dumping my emotional stuff on people all the time. And there are seasons, right? When we're going through a very difficult time, family and friends can come around us and help us to work through that. But it's not forever. You can't be the friend that is always getting help and always, dumping your stuff on other people. And you also don't want to be the person that everybody dumps their stuff on. And these dynamics happen a lot in families, I think. And I've had this from several women where they feel like, oh, they want to talk to me, or the only time they want to talk to me or call me is when they have a problem and they want to spend an hour telling me about their problems. And really not because they want you to help them fix it. Sometimes they just want someone to talk. And that's okay, depending on the relationship, right? If you have a close friend and you need somewhere to vent, that's okay. But if your relationship is just based on venting all the time, then that's not okay. That is not okay. So, where are we overextending ourselves for friends or family? Where are we saying yes to things, automatically without even thinking, without taking a time, a few seconds to think about it? What are we saying yes to? Because a lot of times when you're saying yes to things, we are then saying no to maybe things that are for our own good, things that we should be pursuing. So what are we saying yes to that we probably shouldn't? Where are we taking on extra work, right? Especially at work for those who are who are employed. A lot of times as women, we take on extra work when others don't want to do it. Where are you taking extra work? Are you taking extra work even in your family? Are you the one hosting all the functions, all the holidays? Are you the one doing all the planning? All these things that we take on ourselves. And I believe a lot of it too has to do with our own identity. When we are not sure who we are, we tend to overdo things. We tend to seek other people's approval. A lot of the behaviors that we then exhibit are because we're seeking, we're seeking approval from people. We maybe want to be affirmed or to be loved, so we overextend ourselves. We're taking on extra things that we really shouldn't be taking on. So your life is full of guilt-ridden things. A lot of things that you might be doing because out of guilt. After we have identified those things, the next thing would be to define what is actually our responsibility. What is your responsibility and what is not? And if everything feels like it's a responsibility, it's a feeling and it's not true. It's really being honest. This parts of the process is being honest about what is actually true and what is not. So if you feel like, you've got all this responsibility, a lot of times we don't. They're not all our responsibility. So being able to identify that, right? So you might be in a place where you have adult children, you have extended family, and, or maybe you're in a family where you're not the only sibling, but you're the one who's most of the time taking care of your parents, your aging parents. Is it your responsibility to take care of them? Yes. But is it all the time that you should be taken care of when you have other siblings? No. And can you get help? Yes. No. So it's looking at every single thing and saying, what can I do? How can I help if you need to help? And what does that look like? So that it works for you and not just you are the one people are dumping everything on, every responsibility, every family responsibility, and you're not. And they're not taking on their parts, right? And work stuff. This is, you're working for someone and you're taking on here's the other thing. Even as a business person, if you don't know how to delegate, you end up doing all the things. And I think entrepreneurs, we fall into this a lot because we are, go-getters. I want to do everything. If I don't do everything, doesn't get done right. Or that belief, I can do a video on that by itself. But what work tasks are you taking on that you really shouldn't? So it's re-examining and saying, okay, I'm taking this off the list. I'm no longer going to do this. The other one would be emotional labor. What are we emotionally caring for others? What burdens are we carrying? Where are we trying to be people's saviors? Because that is a thing about women. We tend to just want to save everybody. And it comes from a heart of love and, that we care, we're caregivers. So we tend to want to just save everyone. And we do that to the point that it affects our health, we are carrying so much emotional stuff for other people that we shouldn't. So we are now trying to be very clear about what we are responsible for and what we are not, what we're going to be carrying, going on forward, and what we're not. Then the other step in this process is to remove or reduce. So this is really the action part, right? We are trying to create space now. We want to create space in our lives. So eliminate, remove the things and say, I'm stopping. I am not going to be doing this completely. Just remove. You've identified what needs to be removed, then go ahead and remove it. Or maybe reduce, I was talking about family, taking care of family members. And if you have other siblings, you might say, you know what, I want to reduce the time. In this season I'm in, I want to reduce the time that I'm doing this for them. Can somebody else take over? Can somebody else pick up some hours to help with this? So you are eliminate, which is completely remove. You're going to reduce some things that you're responsible for, but maybe not totally. And then maybe you need to renegotiate certain things in your life with the people around you. And these are conversations you might need to do, is to say, okay, I can do this part. I was doing this and now I really want to do this. I'm in a season of redesigning my life, rebuilding it. And these are the things I'm prepared to do, and kind of work things with people, because what we are not trying to do is to, destroy everything in the process of rebuilding. We want to preserve relations. So when we do the renegotiation, and a lot sometimes has to do with the roles, and whatever roles you've played in the past, you might have to go back and have a conversation about what that looks like and renegotiate that, so that you're not overwhelmed, so that you're not carrying more than you need to do. Having said all that, the reality is that we can give advice, we can share things, but what actually stops people from doing all these things that we have talked about? What stops you and I from taking action when we've had certain things, and we agree that it's a good idea? I definitely need to do that. Okay, so where's the resistance here? Because I'm not saying anything that we really don't know. At this age, at this stage in our lives, we know all this stuff. So I'm not saying anything new to you. I'm not teaching or anything new. All I'm saying is we know this information. Yes, it's good to hear it again. But let's talk about the resistance that makes us not then follow through after we've had the information. And this happens in every area of our lives. Right? So there is something in us that keeps us from really achieving what's in our best interest, and really achieving the life that we want, and going after the things that we want, and building the life that we want. So let's talk about those. And so there's the big one, which is the fear of people. Yeah, we all have that in one level or the other. Some people extreme, some people medium, some people little, but we kind of tend to have the fear of people, especially of disappointing people. And this has to do with the loved ones. Now, we don't want to disappoint our children. We don't want to disappoint our parents. We don't want to disappoint our spouse. We don't want to disappoint our close friends. Right? So we don't end up doing things because we don't want to disappoint people in our lives. And this stops us from moving forward, from rebuilding and redesigning the life that we want, because we have this fear. And my answer to that is that we just have to stop caring. You have lived too long. If you're in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, really, this is something that we just have to stop caring. Stop caring about what people think about you, and stop caring about how they feel about your own decisions. Now, we're not going around hurting people, but we can't live our lives trying to please everybody. Some people are going to be disappointed by our choices, but we still have to make those choices. The other fear that we have is the fear of being different. And which happens a lot, I think, in this stage of life. In midlife, if you are like flipping the your story here and you're starting over and you're rebuilding, there's a people are gonna say, "Oh, you're so different." You're right. Oh, you've changed. That's usually the statement. You've changed. Have I? Or is it because I've just been bearing the things that who I really was buried? I was keeping it buried because I was making myself small. So we tend to have this fear of being seen differently, of people saying we've changed because we are trying to accommodate people in our lives, right? Because if we've changed, then it's going to be hard to have a relationship with those people. And they don't want us to change. People are very happy with you staying the way you are because they can manage you. You're manageable if you're predictable. If you keep doing what you've done before, saying what you've said, you're very manageable. They know how to manage you. So the moment you start redesigning your life and acting different, they're not so happy and they're not comfortable. And this is it's a resistance that comes, I think, a lot more from people whom you are close to than you even believe. Because people do not want to change. There are very few people who are like for you to improve and get better because they don't want to deal with a new version of you. It's uncomfortable. It makes them look at their own lives and maybe not be so happy. And I probably would do a video about this, about the fact that people don't want you to change most of the time because they are so happy with where you are. So we cannot be afraid of being seen different because we understand now that they are looking out for their own best interests. And it's very convenient for you to stay the same. They don't have to deal with you emotionally, financially, physically, whatever. They don't have to. As long as you stay there, you are predictable to them and you're easy to manage. Right? So we need to look from that angle like, yes, I'm going to be different. Really, am I different or am I just going to be myself and I wasn't myself before? But again, it's getting over the fear of what people think about you. And then the big one is the guilt, what we internally feel about what we are doing, the changes we're making. I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't come with guilt. It doesn't come with regrets. A lot of times when we're redesigning our lives and rebuilding it, we are going to have to make some tough decisions that people are not going to like. We might end up losing some friendships, some relationships, some close family members might be removed from our lives because of the decisions that we're making. And with that comes regrets, with that comes guilt. And so these are things that can stop you. Because you may look at that and think, do I really want to go through it? Or you can start to go through your changes and be like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this. So I'm saying this to you so that you know, as you're walking into this, as you're starting this process, or if you're in the middle of it, to know that there is guilt, there is regret, and those are normal. It doesn't mean you have to stop. It just means you work through it. And tell yourself, I have, if you've been honest about yourself, about what you're responsible and what you're not, what are your obligations and what are not, then it's easier to get rid of the guilt because you're clear about what is yours and what is not. And we move forward. But these are the things that you want to look into, right? You want to be aware of that there's going to be resistance because I don't want to talk about, oh, this is what we do and not acknowledge that there's a part of us that also we have to work through that is resisting these changes as we're trying to implement them in our lives. And they're real and they have to be addressed. But what happens when we've removed these things, when we are clear about our responsibility, is that there is, again, emotional and mental space. There is an opening up that happens in your life, especially where time is involved. And this is going to be our next topic. It's going to be in the next video. I'm going to talk about time management. But we cannot get there unless we deal with the other two things that we've talked about so far. So you are very clear when you do this kind of process. You get to be very clear about where you are. right? And something else I want to mention is that this is just not a one-time thing, right? You might have to keep doing this until you're in a place where you feel like, okay, now I've really worked on a lot of things. And excuse me, you might have to do it different seasons too. And so you might do it one season when your kids are young or kids are still at home, and then you might have to do it when the kids are gone. Because every season, I believe, requires you to do this kind of work. Because the building of your life, the rebuilding of your life is a continuous thing. It's not just one thing and done. It's a very continuous thing. It's not, you know, it's not just something we do in a day or weekend and then we're done. So now that we have cleared the mental load, close all those tabs in our heads, and we've removed the things that are draining you, what is the next step? The next step is that we have to then manage your time, help you manage your time. I'm not managing your time for you, but help myself, help you manage our time. That'll be the next video. So if you enjoy this, and I would love for you to continue with this series with me as we are laying the foundation of redesigning and rebuilding your life. If you enjoy this, please subscribe, share this with your friends, and join our community. The link is in the description. I don't know why I'm kind of fucking out here. And there is on Substack, so it's more written form, and I get to go into more depth on different things than I probably do on YouTube. So join our community and subscribe and put on the notification bell and do all the things that YouTube wants you to do. Put the thumbs up, and I'm very grateful for you to sit here and listen to me. And I look forward to seeing you next time.